Welcome everyone to the May 21st, 2013 Shakopee City Council meeting. Item number 1, Ms. Weckman, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Sherman?
Here.
Councilor Lehman?
Here.
Councilor Clay?
Here.
Councilor Whiting?
Here.
Mayor Tapke?
Here. All stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Mr. McNeil.
Mr. Mayor, if we could delete 4C1, which regards improvements for the Valley Park Business Center, that is not ready at this time, and that'll be brought back at a future meeting.
Thank you, sir. Wasn't there one to add as well?
No, that is also not ready to go.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Whiting,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Sherman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously. Item number 4, consent business. Anything to remove or amend from consent? Councilor Lehman?
4E1. And we can discuss 4F5.
4E1 and 4F5. Okay, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, and 4F7 and 4F8 are both items calling for public hearings on some grants. There is an amended note on that. It just basically increases the $500,000 that the state has as a limit to $1 million. So it's correcting the background information. There's nothing changed in terms of what the action is requested of you.
Ms. Lehman?
The matching portion is not from tax levy?
It's 50-50, and in these cases, we're looking for assessments or the company would pick it up. It's not from tax levies.
Okay.
Ms. Lehman?
I'll move the consent agenda as modified, removing the 2 items.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Whiting. Mr. McNeil, please read the
Mr. Mayor.
consent.
4A1 adopts resolution number 7310, approving the transfer of regional transit funds to Scott County for use in the construction of the Marshall Road Transit Station. 4A2 adopts resolution number 7309, approving the final plat of Dean Lake's 9th edition. 4C1 was deleted from the agenda. 4C2 adopts resolution number 7307, restricting parking on Valley View Road from Evergreen Lane to Saracen Street, project number 2012-7. 4D1 approves a successful 1-year probationary period of probation for Mike Santos and grants him full-time regular status as police officer with the Shakopee Police Department. 4D2 approves a successful 1-year probationary period for Richard Thompson and grants him full-time regular status as an engineering technician 4 in the engineering department. 4D3 accepts with regret the resignation of Julie Klima from her position as planner 2 effective May 31st, 2013. 4D4 approves the return of Gary Kern to the position of patrol officer effective May 17th, 2013, and the promotion of Derek Northvet to the position of sergeant effective May 20th, 2013 at step 3 of the current wage scale for sergeants. 4E1 was removed from consent agenda. 4F1 approves payments of bills and electronic transfers in the amount of $723,181.83. 4F2 approves minutes of the City Council meeting of May 7th, 2013. 4F3 adopts resolution number 7305, accepting cash donations for the financing of the Downtown Flower Baskets program for 2013. 4F4 approves applications and grants a temporary on-sale 3-2 liquor license to the Shakopee Lions Club for designated fence beer garden adjacent to a concession stand at Tapa Park on May 31st, June 1st, and June 2nd, 2013, and also granting a license at Tapa Park for June 1st, 2013 with conditions. 4F5 was removed from consent agenda. 4F6 adopts resolutions numbers 7302 and 7303, authorizing submittal of application for a business development public infrastructure program grant through the Department of Employment and Economic Development for Compass Data Center, LLC, and Rosemont Incorporated, respectively. And 4F7 and 4F8 adopts resolution numbers 7311 and 7312, calling for public hearings on granting business subsidies in the form of Minnesota Investment Fund loan to Compass Data Centers, LLC, and Rosemont, Inc., or any of their affiliates, respectively. And again, that was with the amended amounts on the table.
Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 5, recognition of involved citizens by city council. Anyone out there who has, like to speak about an item that is not on the agenda this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, business removed from consent agenda. 4E1, Counselor Lehman.
I wanted to vote against it.
Okay.
I think if we spend as much time trying to make sure people can keep as much of their own money instead of as much time as we try to violate their property rights, we'd be in good shape.
All right, then I'll accept a motion on the item.
Make a motion.
Counselor Whiting?
Make a motion to adopt ordinance number 869, adding a woodland alteration permit fee to the city's fee schedule.
Seconded by Counselor Clay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2 with Councilors Lehman and Sherman in dissent. Item number 4, F5, Counselor Lehman.
The VFW, Shakopee VFW, and a group of downtown businesses today delivered 40 flags with new poles to the Public Works Department to put up over the various holidays for veterans and stuff. And I know what the cost is for that because I helped raise the money for it. I think 4,000 for this project is extremely high, especially if they're the ones that are going on the 2 poles on the pole. They're much smaller, and they bought pretty decent flags. So I would send it to them and have them take a look at it and not commit to a dollar amount at this point. Let them come back with what the recommendations are and then see what it comes up to be.
Okay, I'm comfortable with not to exceed 4,000. I mean, we'll let them do their job and get it as low as they can.
You know, that's pretty expensive considering what it cost for 40 full-size flags on poles.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Do we have a motion? Counselor Clay?
Move to authorize staff and the EDAC to do research and bring back a recommendation. That's the one I want. For downtown banners along First Avenue with funding to come from the council's unallocated fund.
Correct. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Whiting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Item number 7, recess for economic development. We have none.
Actually, we do.
We actually, oh, I'm sorry. I got to the wrong agenda. Entertain a motion to recess for economic development. We'll just back that up a good 30 seconds. Counselor Clay.
Move the recess for economic development.
Counselor Lehman.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously. We are recessed for economic development. President Whiting.
I'll call the Shakopee Economic Development Authority May 21st, 2013 meeting to order. Please make note of the roll.
Yes, Mr. President.
I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I'd like to see a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'd like a motion to approve the EDA bill list.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Question?
Mr. Chair, for years now, I've been asking, we have bills like this for this amount, if they could be tied to a specific function. I'm assuming they're mostly legal fees and that type of thing, but it'd be nice to tie it to which project.
Mr. President and Counselor, if you look at the account number, the Finance Department knows what all those projects are. If you would like us to somehow provide you with what the code numbers are, or somehow put that in, we can do that.
Do you know what they're for right now?
Yes.
What is it?
Basically, these are, these would be Emerson and Compass. That's almost entirely what we've been doing over the past couple months.
Okay.
I think it had legal fees and.
Yep, yep. I kind of figured that. It's just nice to be able to link it to something so that you know exactly where it's going.
We have a motion and a second to approve those, and with the notation that we'll try and get a little more detail on those. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Last item, I'd look to make a motion, get a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, June 18th.
So moved.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, President Whiting. We reconvene the Shakopee City Council meeting and move to item number 9A1, rezoning of property at 1480 3rd Avenue West from B1 Highway Business and R3 Multiple Family Residential to Light Industrial I-1 Zone and re-guiding of the property from commercial to industrial. Mr. Leek.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, members of the audience. As you noted, this is a request to re-guide property from commercial to industrial and to rezone it from from B1 and R3 to I-1 light industrial. There we go. You have these graphics in your packet. The property is located along 3rd Avenue West in western Shakopee. Previously was the site of Heller Drywall, and when originally developed was a business called Cars by Owner. You'll see that the corner of the property to the northeast is actually zoned medium-density residential. It is this portion which is below the
Could you move that up?
townhouses to the east.
Mr.
which-
Leek,
Yes.
could you move that up a little bit
I
for us?
could.
Thank you.
Sorry, getting used to the new technology, which is actually zoned B1 at this point. The request is to re-guide the property to industrial and to rezone it to light industry. This was the subject of a public hearing at the Planning Commission. As you see in the minutes that are on the table for you this evening, we do have a draft set of those minutes. There was one adjacent resident who was a developer of the project he lives in who testified at that public hearing. And in the end, at the end of their discussion, the Planning Commission, by a 5-0 vote, recommended to you that the property not be re-guided and rezoned. You have a revised resolution on the table. The only change to that resolution is that it accurately reflects that the recommendation was not to approve the request. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council Lehman.
Mayor, it's my understanding that the services to this property aren't adequate for an industrial use. Is that correct?
That's our understanding, that the water services would not be adequate for some industrial uses.
Some industrial uses or industrial uses?
It depends on the nature of the use, but generally speaking, for the industry zones, we understand that we are looking for a larger diameter water service.
Council Whiting.
I had quite the same question, but I'll take it a little farther. What would it take to get the proper water service to that location? Maybe that's a question for Mr. Loney.
Well, I believe Mayor, member of the council, and Councilor Whiting, Shakopee Public Utilities usually requires a 12-inch water main for industrial property. And I believe there's a water main on 3rd Avenue. And they would have to bring that water main up and connect. And I believe it's, I can't remember, I think there's only an 8-inch water main down there right now and a 6 along Harrison Street. But I see from the memos here, that was the concern of the fire marshal inspector.
Mr. Loney, is RAR on their own well system, or are they on a city system? I think they'd have a bigger.
RAR has, on their operations, on their big plant operations, they have their own well. And their domestic office supply is on the city water.
Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. McNeil.
I note that this was discussed with the EDAC at their last meeting, and there was some consensus, I believe, that if there is going to be a rezoning, that perhaps a more comprehensive look at that whole area might be appropriate as opposed to just the single property.
Council Lehman.
I think we did the comprehensive overlook of the whole area in our comprehensive plan. last update. And I think our comprehensive plan has that guided for business. Is that correct?
It does have it guided for business use, and I had that question posed to me before the meeting about the area across to the west. That too is guided for commercial. Remember, however, the city boundary is in that area, so it's a very small portion which is currently within the city on the west side of 69. A couple of things about taking a look at that area. We have a specific application. We did, as I noted in reviewing the file, extend the review period for 120 days, which I think potentially takes us to the first week in August. By that point, the city council would have to make a final determination, so a question would be, if you really think there's an additional level of study that should be done here, it would need to be done in a fairly short time frame. I'd also note that might be of interest that the first iteration of the EDAC, as some of you will recall, did look at various areas of the city and what they thought should occur and what kind of focus there should be. They did look at the 69 area. That might be worthwhile information. So, a couple of additional tidbits.
Could you put the map you had back up
can.
on there for me, please?
Certainly.
I would be interested in getting either the planning or the EDAC's thoughts on. Does it zoom out? How far north do we go here, Michael? So that right up there in the corner that we see, that gray part, that's RAR, correct?
RAR is in this direction?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're right there, right?
No, that's
No.
that,
They're not far enough north yet.
No.
not far
But-
enough.
Quite a ways yet.
This graphic does not include RAR.
Okay, so from there, I would be curious as to what they think about, because that area through there, I mean, I don't have, this standing on its own, I don't have any desire to change it to industrial all by itself, but that area all along Old Brickyard, from RAR to basically where those townhomes start, that bluff area, I think that we would be better served as a city to have that as guided toward more industrial heavier uses through there, because that's what that area seems to me to be headed toward, what it's been and where it's going seems to be more heavy use through that area, especially when you consider what's on the other side in Jackson Township. On that side, I don't see this anytime in the next 20, 30 years, unless the city wants to buy up all the land, as moving toward a retail highway business type use. So unless we want to put some serious thought into what this is, because there's quite a bit of space open out there with what we could do with it. And so I would like to send it back to the EDAC and planning commissions and ask them what the best and highest use of that land is, and see what they have to say about that, and see if it is something that makes sense or doesn't make sense. I'm not quite sure. Councilor Clay.
Yeah, both sides of County 69 are currently, but that's within the city of Shakopee, are currently zoned highway business. Highway business doesn't allow outside storage,
That's correct.
but almost all of these businesses that are existing have outside storage.
That's true, but a caveat about that in connection with what the mayor has said. Remember that most of these uses, with the exception of the property that we're talking about now, were developed when they were in the township or in the city
Yeah.
under a different variation of the city's code that allowed those uses at that time.
It's
So they are legal non-conforming uses in some cases within the city. One of them has been the subject of enforcement in the entire 17 years I've been here, because it hasn't been consistent with its PUD conditions. The areas along 69 to the west, outside the city limits, which is much of that area, developed in the township under a different set of regulations entirely. So, just an observation, because it looks one way today, doesn't necessarily mean that's the direction it's going or you may want it to go. And if you were to do a study, I think the key issue is, what do you expect to occur from 69 and 169 in that interchange? And how should the uses along that corridor look farther to the south along 69?
Councilor Clay?
Just one last follow-up. It's always been kind of a unique area within the city and township.
Well,
It's almost as though we should throw our hands up and just create a whole new zoning for that particular area right down there, and not have it extend out to 69, 169, but for that area right there by the railroad tracks and everything else, and just, create a new zoning that's, call it Ozark-esque tin shed, commercial industrial or something,
well,
So just admit the fact that it's always gonna be just sort of a, not so great area that serves its purpose for certain businesses, and
The only reason, as I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mr. Lee, because this is coming forward, it was non-conforming use for a while, but there was a period of non-use on that property of a certain amount of time that kicked it into needing to conform to the current zoning. Is that accurate?
well, actually, this property, as I noted, was originally developed for a used car sales use. It was cars by owner, which clearly was within the zoning ordinance. When Mr. Heller acquired the property, he and I had discussions about whether the type of business he was going to be conducting fit the existing zoning, and at the time he instituted it, it did. He certainly expanded the business and the building specifically in a way that may have changed the character of that use. And as he noted, he's talked to a number of prospective users. We have as well, at least one which would have fit the existing zoning of the property, and we don't know what happened to them. But it was not the case that there have not been commercial users that we've talked to. So it is not a case of the property having been legal non-conforming for a long time. When it was first developed, it was a conforming retail use.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Lehman?
Well, here's my thought. 69 Old Brickyard Road, it's a highway. So why would you put highway business next to a highway? Probably because it's called highway business, and it makes sense next to a highway because that's where highway business usually is. Now, the concern I have with putting industrial in here, even if it's the larger area under your plan, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but somehow you're gonna have to buffer against these residential uses that are already there. Where highway business is a much less of a intense use than a heavy industrial or industrial use. So it's not, to me, what you wanna put there to fit now, it's what obligation do you have to what's already there?
And Councilor Lehman, thank you for that point. Members of the council, you'll have seen reflected in the report to the Planning Commission that to some extent we were informed in putting together the analysis for this case by what you recently did in connection with property that RARS sought to have rezoned, also adjacent to residential. And to the point of screening, the existing townhouses that you see are substantially higher in elevation than this property. And even when we had a CUP, a conditional use permit request for auto sales, a concern of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals was whether or not you could effectively screen that use. So assume for the moment it becomes I-1, maybe a warehousing use comes into existence and they seek to have outdoor storage. I'm not sure how you effectively screen that kind of use from the existing residential to the east.
And I'm not asking to litigate this or answer all the questions right now. I'm just asking if there's interest in looking at it and having Planning Economic Development Committee look at it and come back to us with what they and staff think is the best future for that portion.
So are you suggesting that we go with the recommended action on this parcel tonight, but then have staff continue exploring
Yes, I would.
options on it?
I'll be voting to reject the application, but I do think that it warrants study for that section.
I
That
agree.
is my thought on it. So I would entertain a motion with, first on the, actually, I have a question here first. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this topic? Just to make sure we cover that. All right, nobody here. Councilor Lehman?
Offer resolution 7308, resolution of the city of Shakopee denying the request to re-guide the property at 1480 Third Avenue West from commercial to industrial and rezoning the property from highway business to multiple family R3.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Whiting? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. I would also entertain a motion to look at the area from RAR to this property as to future use, whether its best and highest use would be industrial or as it currently is zoned.
So moved.
Anyone? Councilor Whiting?
From RAR to,
To the edge of that.
I understand that to be to basically the city limits along along 69.
shouldn't we also be looking at this in conjunction with the county? Because we would want to be doing something
On the other side as well?
in conjunction with them or in discussion with them, because it's all gonna flow in from. or
You're talking
share.
on the Jackson Township side, on the
Yeah,
west side?
And members of the council, I might note that cooperating in that regard may make sense. The county has sought and been awarded funds to do a study in connection with Jackson Township, focusing on 69-169. The real focus there is what the viability of the township is, but some of the discussion will have to do with the land uses that will result or would want to result from that interchange occurring. And I think the assumption is that they would urbanize, meaning they would probably be brought in the city and have municipal services. So we can talk to the county about how those two should interact as studies.
So your
I'll take that as an amendment.
amendment to broaden the scope to 169-69 and enter into discussions with the Jackson Township and the county.
Any discussion? Councilor Lehman?
Mayor, I think the proper way to do that would be to just have staff ask Scott County, who's already been asked by the working group of the mayor and myself with Jackson Township, to include that area in their study.
I think you're entirely right that that's when that would happen. I agree completely. Any other discussions?
Is that right?
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we move on to item 9F1, garbage recycling RFP preferred hauler designation. Mr. McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Exactly 1 year ago tonight, at this second meeting in May, the city council heard a proposal from the current hauler, Dick Sanitation, for a proposal to go to a single sort recycling system. Single sort is a newer technology and certainly is becoming more popular with the industry, both with the providers and with residents, the customers. However, to do that, Dick's had asked for a 5-year extension of their current contract, which would otherwise expire on May 31st, 2014. They've had the contract since 2001. You looked at that and thought that it was appropriate to go out for proposals and see what else was out there. So that's what we have done. In September, council authorized Foth Engineering and Infrastructure to provide the city with assistance. Foth teamed with Schaefer Consulting, and they have provided help to city staff in order to put together a request for proposal, an RFP. In September, you did that. In October and November, the RFP was reviewed by the Environmental Advisory Commission 3 times. That ultimately went to you as a city council. On February 5th, you authorized staff to go out to seek RFPs for that. On March 27th, we got 6 proposals back. We'll do that, all right? Those were. It's
Very
a
well
new
done.
technology, thank you. Allied Waste, Buckingham, Dick Sanitation, Elite, Red River Service Corporation, and Waste Management. Those proposals were reviewed by a review team, which was made up of the Public Works Director, the Public Works Superintendent, Parks, Recreation, Natural Resources Director, and myself. We also had a 5th member from Scott County's Environmental Health look at that for us. The RFPs were reviewed for 5 different criteria. Those are price schedules, which would be the total cost of the services over the 5-year base term of the contract. Experience and capacity, this would be the demonstrated capability, including the company's financial condition. References, openness and responsiveness to the RFP, and this would be evidence that they understood the city's needs, goals, objectives, service quality, qualifications, and quality standards. And finally, overall environmental benefits. That would include the specific operations that were proposed, the company's overall approach and philosophy to environmental protection and natural resource conservation. The committee looked at all the criteria and evaluated each. I'll emphasize, overall, there was no single criteria which by itself made the decision for us. Each proposal was looked at individually and collectively analyzed against the 5 proposed criteria in the RFP. The RFP contains specific requirements, but also has some generalizations. For example, you didn't make a decision on the ownership of the carts until 2 weeks ago at the May 7th meeting. So therefore, we're going to have further negotiations regarding cart management, a transition plan, and performance standard. Those will have to be negotiated. Having said earlier that cost was not the major factor, it was important. That was referenced by the council, by the EAC, and it also no for residents as well. The council's been provided with a summary of the proposals, and that was, again, that was provided to you. The consultant has tallied the totals of about a dozen different cost criteria. Based on the decision that you made as far as cart ownership, we would say that Allied Waste Services has the lowest overall cost. If you add all that up over 5 years, that's just under $5.3 million. It's also the recommendation of the review committee that Allied would be the company with whom the city would enter into for negotiations. Elite Waste Disposal was the next company that the committee would recommend for negotiations if things don't work out with Allied. Their overall cost for 5 years was about $382,000 more than that of Allied. And finally, if neither of those sets of negotiations work out, the committee recommends negotiating with Dick's Sanitation Services, the current incumbent. Their 5-year overall cost is about $398,000 more than what the proposal was of Allied. Again, these are 5-year costs for about a dozen different criteria, so it's not an easy apples-to-apples comparison. If you look at the individual components of it, I'll give you an example. For example, the 2013 costs currently provided by Dick Sanitation for those who subscribe to seasonal yard waste, they'd see about a 14% increase if you went with Allied. Townhomes would see about a 10% increase based on what Dick's is currently providing versus Allied. On the flip side of that, if you look at the standard recycling and refuse customer for Shakopee, they'd see about a 26% decrease in their monthly billing by going with Allied. Because the proposals contain private data, we're restricted by Minnesota law as to what we can share. I'll defer to the city attorney if he has any other advice for what you can talk about regarding this. We're recommending as the committee that the bid guarantees of the other three companies, which would be Red River, Buckingham, and Waste Management, be returned with the city's thanks. I know there are representatives of at least three of the companies here tonight who would like to speak to you. Are there any general questions of me at this time?
First, Mr. Thompson, what can we and can we not speak about this evening? We have, just so everyone knows, we have confidential information up here with us, and I don't know what we can talk about and what we can't talk about. Sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yes, for the benefit of the public and both and the city council, there's a state law, it's called the Data Practices Act, that governs government data. It classifies the information in these proposals as private, other than the names of the proposers. The information, with a few minor exceptions, will become ultimately public when the council completes negotiations, which essentially means when you approve a contract, which would not be tonight. So that data is private. The memo that you received from the consultant contained information from the proposals, and that's why that memo is also private. So that's the nature of the data. When it's private, it means it's not allowed to be accessed or disclosed to third parties. Obviously, each one of the proposers have their own information. They know that, but they don't know the others. So that's the status of the data. Now, we also need to deal with the open meeting law, okay? And the open meeting law does not allow a city council to close a meeting simply to discuss private data. It specifically states you must discuss that in public. So, although the data in the proposal is private, to the extent that you need to discuss it, and it's reasonably necessary to discuss it tonight, for example, the city administrator disclosed the relative pricing that is contained from the in the proposals themselves. So to the extent it's reasonably necessary, and it's normally part of your discussion, you can bring that information up tonight during the council meeting, but not outside of the council meeting. And I know this is a little bit tricky when you
Yeah.
Is there anything in these memos that is not reasonable to discuss this evening?
If a council member believes it's reasonable and it's relevant to any one particular council or the council as a group to the decision that's before you, then it's reasonably necessary to discuss it.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Lehman.
Can we get that last slide put back up?
Which has the,
Yeah, it had the criteria on it. Then I don't know if this would be for staff or if it would be for the city's consultant that we hired to work through this process, but I guess the question that I have would be the three that are recommended to negotiate with. We already talked about the price schedules. Is our review committee and our hired consultant confident in the experience and capacity level of them three?
we know the three, the consultant knows the three very well. I don't know that there is anything that you could say that would disqualify any of them based on experience and ability to provide services.
And I'm assuming we checked references and they checked out fine for them three?
We have not checked references at this point pending your direction tonight.
Okay. And the next one they obviously did, the overall environmental benefits, went through that. They're all eligible under that.
Everyone has a different way of looking at things. Some have biodiesel for powering their vehicles, others have compressed natural gas. Some do recycling in a way different than others, but yes, they meet the standards that we've identified in the RFP.
Okay. And then maybe an overview of the state bidding process and what the intent of that process is would be good.
This is not technically a bid. That would be a low price only sort of thing. Because this is a service, you look at the overall value for that. Price is a component, but you can also look at other criteria, including those that we've identified tonight. City Attorney, is there anything else that, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry, Councilor Clay.
quick question for Mr. Thompson. In our confidential memorandum, which is somewhat maybe public, it depends. It says that the city council has the sole authority to decide which proposal was in the best interests of the eligible residents of the city of Shakopee. So if we were to decide that the highest priced one that's least recommended, if we like that one better, we could just decide to go with that one.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yes, this, as Mr. McNeil stated, this is not a bid, it's a proposal. So
All right.
it's, I mean, an analogy might be if you go out for a consultant. Well, the consultant in this particular one, that was not a bidding process, and you don't have to pick the one with the lowest price when it's not a bidding process.
Thank you.
Councilor Whiting?
Mr. McNeil, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the carts and ownership of the carts. How much of a factor did this play in either including or excluding one of these groups?
The numbers would have changed by virtue of the fact that with the city owning the carts, generally speaking, it was less per month for each, with each of the proposers, because the city would be fronting that cost. One of the reasons why we wanted a discussion with you and a decision at that evening was because it would make a difference in terms of what the recommendation would have been from the committee.
So if we hadn't taken over ownership of the carts, one of these other groups would have rose to the top.
Conceivably, yes.
Councilor Sherman?
See, and that's where, that's where in the materials, I don't see like a switching cost, so to speak, that's separate from the other cost portions. So even in a household for consumer goods, for example, if you're buying cell phone service, you may be a Verizon customer and be looking at AT&T, but there's usually a switching cost associated with changing from one vendor to another. So that's the unclear portion that I don't see here.
And that's one of the reasons why the requested action is to go to negotiations, because as I mentioned earlier, we would have to have a transition plan.
Any other questions? Councilor Lehman?
I'm assuming that our review committee and our consultant has no reason to believe that the recommendation that's being put forward would bring us any less service than we're currently receiving.
We have had a good level of service from Dick Sanitation. No one has a complaint about that. We would hope to continue the same level of service with Allied or whomever we would enter into as a contract. We do have performance criteria in there, and whoever would get the contract, if they fail to live up to that, there are financial penalties for that.
Further questions? All right, at this point, I know the folks who have been kind enough to give proposals to us with this process are here. And I'd like to hear from the top three who are with us this evening. Those are Allied, Buckingham, and Dix. Elite and Dix. I'm sorry, I went the wrong direction. Elite and Dix. Allied, Elite, and Dix in that order. I would 5 minutes each. Sorry, Elite. I got bad notes. That was my fault. Sorry. Yeah, I would like to hear from you. Just quick 5 minutes. Mr. McNeil is going to be our esteemed timer this evening, and I will be cutting folks off so that we make sure that it is all even and equal for everyone. So, sir from Allied.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rich Herstein from Allied Waste Services. I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank the review committee for going through all the work that they did. And I wanted to come and just talk a little bit about the proposal that we put together and the relationship that we certainly hope to have with the city and the citizens of Shakopee. I wanted to tell you, first of all, that our company is based right in Eden Prairie by the Flying Cloud Airport. In fact, you can see our building from here. If we were able to get up on the roof and look over, you can certainly see downtown Shakopee from our building. We're 1948, we started that business right there called Wood Lake Sanitation and BFI, and now we're Allied Waste. I've been with the company for 20 years, and I started out on the truck, and then I became a salesperson for the company, and now I'm helping with the city contracts and things of that sort. We have about 12 employees that live right here in Shakopee, including our customer service manager. She lives here in Shakopee, and she was thrilled to get the tweet this weekend about from the mayor about that, because she follows the city through that process. I don't even know about tweets, but she told me about it. So we have about a dozen employees that live right here in Shakopee, and they're thrilled to be a part of that. I wanted to tell you, this is something that's very important. I know that it's important that you have local. The people that will be servicing the city of Shakopee, if we get to that point, live here, work here, and live 10 minutes away, not even 10 minutes away, at our building in Eden Prairie. All of our customer service people that will handle every single call for Shakopee work right there. I live here. We all live here and work here. And we have about 200 employees that work right up over there at the Flying Cloud Airport office right there. We'll handle all of the questions, all of the calls. In fact, the information that we put together for the citizens, we'll have them call our office as a not to the city hall. So there'll be no burden on city staff or extra time or obligations for city staff. So it'll ease that burden that you won't have to do any of that. We'll put together all of the literature and the launch. I know Councilmember Sherman brought up the point of transition costs and things of that sort. There is no transition costs from our company. That will be covered. That's part of our plan. It's part of our budgeted amount for the services. And then I know that ours was nearly $400,000 less than the other companies. But we built that in as a part of the service, delivering all the carts that the city would buy and managing that whole process. We do it for other cities right now. I've done this dozens of times where we've transitioned from one company to the other. So I've got experience. Like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. And I don't see any problems in working with the city to develop comprehensive education plans to teach the residents about single-sort recycling and carts. Like I said in the proposal that we put together, that I would go attend, Derby Days and all these other events that you have, go on public access television and appear in front of school groups and things of that to teach about the recycling program, to teach kids about it, so that everybody understood that the carts were coming and what was coming up, the transition plan and everything else. And we'll take out ads in the paper and we'll do whatever it takes to do that. And we have done it before. We've done it professionally. And I think we can handle this. And we're thrilled to have gotten the call.
Thank you. And we'll let, if there's any council members have questions for you, ask questions. Councilman Lehman?
What cities do you currently serve?
The entire Twin Cities metro area. How about that for an answer? It'd be too long of a list, but all the way around the Twin Cities we service, and then up in St. Cloud as well.
Do you mean specifically single city services like ours, or do you mean just in general?
Well, I was looking for something south.
Oh, sure. Eden Prairie, Chaska, I can go on and on about Waconia and Victoria and Chanhassen and Bloomington. And
Councilor Clay?
How many of those have a closed system like Shakopee does?
not a lot of those right there. But we have about 25 cities, almost 30 cities that we provide contracted services for in the metro area. So we do this kind of thing in about 30 different cities in the Twin Cities area. But Eden Prairie doesn't, to answer your question. Victoria does not have a closed system. Chaska does not. Bloomington does not. St. Louis Park's probably the closest, that direction.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Folks from Leap.
Spot, right? I have a question first for Mr. Thompson. Can I share things about my proposal?
Yeah.
That's okay, right? Okay. Just wanted to make sure before I
Well done.
talked. All right. I will try and talk quickly. Mine takes about 5 minutes and 15 seconds, so I'll try and be brief. But Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council and city staff, Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm sorry, let me back up here. I gotta get this up. There we go.
What was the name?
All right.
Elite.
That is us. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Troy Schutte. I'm the president and owner of Elite Waste Disposal. We're a local family-owned hauler. We're based out of Jordan, Minnesota. We've been in the waste disposal business for the last 19 years. I'm here tonight to present our position as to why you should recommend our company as the first company, not the second company, for city staff to negotiate with over the next month. First and foremost, I believe we are the best choice for the city of Shakopee in regards to fitting into your mission statement. And I'll read the end of it. To create a small town atmosphere within a metropolitan setting. What better way to accomplish this than to hire a family-owned local hauler that is 9 miles down the road? We also fit into your goal D, which is, by choosing Elite Waste Disposal tonight, you will partner with a local hauler that's going to provide 11 new jobs to the community if we're awarded this contract. We'll also create an opportunity for our business partners to create local jobs and increase the city's tax base because we're gonna haul all of the garbage, recycling, compost, and organics to Shakopee locations. Those locations are listed on the screen. I'm not certain that our competition can say the same thing. Our competition may be hauling it to their own facility. You should ask them. The criteria, as Mr. McNeil stated before, is listed on the screen. Due to the fact that we are the committee's second choice, I'm assuming we met all of the conditions and requirements of the RFP, including the criteria that are to be used to evaluate the proposals that are listed on the screen. I want to touch on a few of them as it relates to Elite. Price schedules. We will be saving the residents of Shakopee over $1.4 million over the life of the contract. That's in comparison to what they're paying today. That's a 15% savings off your current rates. In addition to these savings, there are numerous other savings that are listed on the screen. Please take special note of the 70% increase in revenue sharing in regards to your single stream recycling for the city. Our revenue sharing formula had it at 85%. Now our competition might have came in at 100%, but when you compare that to the 12 months of the commodity pricing, or the most recent 12 months, this would have only been a $2,500 increase in annual revenue for the city from the 85 to 100. If this makes or breaks the deal, we'd concede the $2,500. We also presented a program for pickup of the low volume producers, possibly the seniors in the city. This service was offered at $1.50 a month. Experience and capacity. We've proven our experience in our proposal. We know what we are doing. We provided 2 letters of recommendation, one from the city of Jordan, one from the city of Henderson. They like working with us. As far as references go, these are the cities, or the 5 different public entities that we submitted references from. They enjoy working with us. Thoroughness and responsiveness. This is our proposal. 100 pages. I think we were thorough. I think we understand what the city wants. I hope you get a chance to read it, or at least give us a chance to prove to you that we can do the job while providing stimulus to the local economy by providing jobs and an increased tax base. Again, I'm not sure our competition can say that. Overall environmental benefits. To conserve time, upon completion, I will provide a list of 5 methods we use to provide environmental benefits to the city. They're also listed on the screen. While Elite Waste Disposal exceeded all of the criteria in evaluating the proposals, keep in mind, no one single criterion will be determinative of the best proposal, and the foregoing list is not exhaustive. It comes right out of the RFP. In other words, you do not have to choose the cheapest provider, okay? According to the review committee, one could assume that we were the second cheapest. Well, of course that's the case. It's tough for a local hauler to compete against the nationals. We are just asking for a chance to be the company that the committee negotiates with first. 1 minute. Please note, when, excuse me, we'll back up. Please note, Dick Sanitation was the 3rd highest bidder in 2001. The costs over the 5-year term of the contract are listed on the screen. Please note that the lowest to the highest are $400,000 apart. You just heard that we're $380,000 apart. Yes, thank you. They chose the highest bidder. The management team at Elite has always stated in regards to this contract that if what the city of Shakopee wants is the cheapest price, we will not be awarded in the contract. But if what the city wants is significant savings for the residents and the best service by working with a local family hauler, we will have a chance. In closing, 45 seconds. In closing, please reconsider the committee's recommendation to enter in negotiations with Allied Waste Services first. Remember the quote in the RFP. You get sole discretion to determine which proposer gets the contract. This is the last sentence. When the contract was awarded to Dix, the city was currently using Waste Management, a national hauler, just like Allied. The city went so far as to put it in the contract that Dick's could not sell to a national hauler. This is what was written on the memorandum on October 6, 2000. They agreed to not do the hauler.
All right. Thank you. Questions? You did a very nice job of talking fast. Councilor Lehman.
I'm trying. I had 1 page left, so.
You came close. Councilor Lehman.
With the less amount of compost and organics out to the Mdewakanton is the less amount of noise or smell complaints that we receive.
Well, that's not entirely true, but okay.
Not really a comment. Nothing to do with you, just
I respect that.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Can I distribute these, what I said I was gonna distribute? Is that okay, or?
Yeah, give him to Mark, and he'll.
Put the local
There you go.
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is David Domack with Dick Sanitation. I do not have a proposal tonight. I'm here going to, I guess, give you my good looks here, but what I wanted to start out with is, Troy had a good point. Back in 2001, when we originally did this, I believe there were 9 proposals that came out. Matt may know, I guess, the history of that a little bit, but part of what you were looking at is you had done a survey that actually found that your customers were dissatisfied with their current hauler. That hauler was a national hauler. When the RFPs were sent out and we submitted our RFP, you had chose a service that wasn't the cheapest, wasn't the most expensive. It had the overall best value for the residents of Shakopee. Our proposal, you had decided to go out for proposals as of several months ago. Our proposal that we had submitted, we felt had provided all the criteria that came for your expectations for the residents of Shakopee. That included the lower rates. We lowered our rate. We included CNG, compressed natural gas, for all of our trucks. We said that all of the garbage carts that we currently have in the system, we would give to the city as a part of the contract, the current carts in our system. We would also be working with all of the tree wards programs. We had a public outreach program, a youth program.
Could we just be clear on one thing to make sure I understand?
Get through and we'll get the 5 minutes and we can go back.
Okay.
That's okay.
Good.
Can I add that 5 seconds? You just took off my...
I'll give you 10.
All right. So we added the public outreach. We added a lot of additional programs that brought in the kids, the environment, the recycling, everything. The other thing we do is, as we've learned through this 13 years, we've developed relationships with local charities and donations. We've been there for Derby Days and everything in between. Then I guess the connections with the businesses, Valley Fair, Canterbury Park, everything as far as raw malting. You'd be surprised the value of doing business and being a hauler as the residential hauler in this community. So that's the biggest one that I'm here today, and that's the value, okay? Like Troy had stated, the issue that we have is we have a great team. We've got our drivers here, are committed and devoted. We have our team here, we have our owners here as the local family-owned company that have been around since 1966, and we are currently devoted to, staffed with our operational managers, our drivers, our team of safety, and more or less making sure that everything is coherent with our safe drivers. So we're here today to tell you of the fact that this, And keep in mind on just even a transition of it, of all the things that we provided in the proposal, we have satisfied all the criteria. We have provided you with great references as an independent hauler. We have 86 trucks. We have a backup fleet of trucks. There's a lot of strength in numbers as a little company, but as a part of that, we ask you to consider the value of our business and what we've provided over the 11 years. We are not the cheapest. We weren't the cheapest in 2001, okay? But we have lowered our rate. We have said we would include the carts as a part of the program. So Dick Sanitation, who has been providing good service for the past 13 years, we are not a large...
Just saying you got one left.
Yep, I've got one sentence left. So,
Beautiful.
we're not a large national company. We are a medium-sized, independent, family-owned company. But we do not want to sacrifice price over value, because that is what takes away from our service. So tonight, for these reasons, we request Mayor Tapke and the members of the council to consider negotiations with Dick Sanitation for 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. McNeil, I'd like you to clarify for us, there was the original proposal, and then we got a letter to all council members yesterday that was slightly different from the original proposal with regard to the containers, and we will be sticking with the original proposal, obviously. We'd just like you to address that real quick.
As we've looked at it, the original proposal, which was submitted by Dick's, indicated at the end of the 5-year new term and two-year extensions, they would sign the ownership of the carts over to the city. The information that you received yesterday was different than that, so we would suggest that that is different information, therefore should not be considered.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Councilor Clay.
Yeah, maybe this is a question for Foth. The numbers total numbers we're looking at, does that include cost savings from not only having to buy half as many carts if we went with Dick's?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Dan Crivet with Foth Infrastructure. No, it did not consider that because that wasn't a part of the original proposal. We reviewed, and the committee reviewed the proposals as submitted, and it was, number one, deemed to be after the 5-year period, and number two, after city council decision of 2 weeks ago, it was contractor-owned carts were off the table, so we did not include that savings, but you're right that it's a piece that is being attempted to be added here yesterday to be transmit the ownership of the carts immediately with the new proposal. The original that was submitted.
If you have something to say with regards to that, feel free.
Yeah. If I may, Mayor, members of the council, even the attorney, I'm wondering why that was in our proposal. It was just set up as a separate confidential.
No.
Mr. McNeil?
May I read from your proposal?
Sure.
Okay. Trash cart ownership. If DSI is the chosen contractor for the refuse and recycling contract, DSI proposes to include the existing trash carts over a 5-year plus the two-year extensions. Continue upon the end of the term of the agreement, the city of Shakopee would receive title of ownership of all existing refuse carts. If the city accepts this option, this would supersede all refuse cart purchase options. The information which you received yesterday by council talked about immediate ownership. That's different in our view.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Is that clear? Correct?
That is.
All right. Thank you.
But that wasn't included in our rate, though. That's what I'm confused about.
We're just talking about the ownership of
Okay.
the carts.
Very
Thank you,
good.
sir.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, Councilor Lehman.
Mayor, if we're gonna allow modifications to what the RFP actually was, we should
We are
probably.
not allowing
Okay,
modifications to
Because
what the
if we are, we
RFP.
better give the other folks an
There's-
opportunity to sweeten the pot a little too.
There's 0 options, and there's 0 options. I'm just making sure that everyone is clear as to what came across to us yesterday, that is different from what was in the proposal, and that is not accepted or considered this evening.
Okay.
Correct?
That would be our recommendation.
Right. Because if that were to be, then it would need to be completely opened up again and the process started over.
Correct.
All right, thoughts from folks? Actually, before we go there, sorry, Councilor Whiting, is there anybody in the audience that would like to say anything with regard to this item? Yes, sir.
Mayor, members of the council, do I need to sign in?
Yes, you do. Name, address, all that good stuff.
Credit card number?
We do accept those.
Credit limit would be nice too.
All those numbers on the back of the card.
My name's Keith Yonke. I just moved here at the beginning of May. I'm just curious, I got a couple questions as to why we are a closed system. If we could clarify that, as to why we don't have options and why can't the citizens kind of choose?
Yes, Mr. McNeil.
Shakopee has had an organized system for in excess of 30 years. There are many cities in the metropolitan area that have an open system, and residents are free to do what they want in terms of hiring a contractor. Shakopee feels that the overall benefits of having an organized system outweigh the personal choice opportunity. We think that we get better rates due to the efficiencies of consolidated pickups. It's less wear and tear on our streets, which means that your taxes aren't raised to as frequently repair those potholes, reconstruct and do those sorts of things. There are also environmental benefits by having an assurance that everyone is participating in recycling issues. All in all, I think there are a lot of cities that are looking at the benefits of that. There's been one within the past decade that's probably made the switch, and I know there's been discussion at the legislature for making it easier for cities to make that consideration. We've looked at both sides, and we think that the organized system meets Shakopee best.
Okay, so there's, I guess, in the proposal, there's not an option to go to an open system?
No.
I mean, we can't
Decision-
choose none of the above?
The decision that the city council made by sending the RFP out was that it would continue with the organized system.
Okay, so that was a decision made by the council 20, 30 years ago?
And last year.
Been reaffirmed several
Reaffirmed.
times.
Yes. And what's your concern with the closed system as we've got it?
How do you guys know what's best for me? I guess that's my concern. How much did it cost to pay, is it Foth? What did it cost for their services? That's all tax dollars. I mean, seems to be a lot of tax dollars involved and,
Got it. Thank you.
yeah.
All right. Perfect.
Mayor.
Anyone else? Oh,
Mayor,
sorry, Councilor Lehman.
I'd like to make a comment to your comments. If I go back about 9 years, which I do on this body, the other issue that was raised with the closed system, and I'm opposed to a closed system myself, but I do see the benefits to it. One of the problems that we had is you had 5 different haulers on one single block serving 10 houses coming on different days of the week. So in theory, you had a city block with 10 houses on it. I'm using my neighborhood for an example. 3 different haulers, 3 different days of the week, all utilizing the same one alley with multiple trips. One for the recycle, one for the garbage. So 2 trucks, one company, 2 trucks, another company. So you had 6 trips in that alley in 1 week.
3 trucks each.
Well, then it was 2 trucks each. Not only they're tearing up the alleys, but they're tearing up the streets, and now this year we're doing $3 point some million worth of road improvements. So, yeah, I'd like to have individual choice, but I don't want to pay for the streets. The other problem that we had when I did decide to support this back, I think it was 9 years ago, was there's a group of individuals that prefer not to have garbage service and use somebody else's, which really isn't fair to the person that's paying for it when they can't use their own. because somebody else decided to use it. And now it becomes an enforcement issue where you have the police running around trying to figure out who's using whose garbage can instead of taking down criminals. So it's unfortunate that people do that, but they do, or they dump it out next to a lake in some environmental sensitive area and so on and so forth. So in a perfect world, I agree with you, but we don't live in a perfect world.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Clay.
And we're not the only ones making a decision on what's best for you. The state and local governments make the decision about how fast it's safe for you to drive on the road. They tell you that, make a decision for you about how old you have to be before you can go to a bar and drink. As you continue on through life, you're going to find there's all kinds of people and organizations out there making decisions for you.
All right, other comments?
Or a wife.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention wives.
All right, no.
Yeah, I'm
Yes, sir.
already signed in.
You already signed in? Okay.
Yep. My
You
name's
are?
Jack Nelson. I live up on Minnesota Street. I happen to like Dick's. I'll tell you right up front. But if they've got carts out there already, and the other companies don't, we're gonna have to pay extra to get them carts out there, and that's gonna bring the price right back where, you know, if the city's gonna buy the carts, and Dick's already got them out there, and he's saying, we'll give them to you, we gotta pay them to hire somebody else. And I see it as a waste of tax dollars, which I see a lot of waste. And that's one of the small little areas that is just a little bit of waste. If you open up the bidding again, let it go, see what they wanna do. If they wanna give you free carts, fine. You already got them out there with Dick's, and the service is great. You can plan on what day they're gonna be there, what time they're gonna be there. There's no reason to change, I don't think. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Anything you want to address on that? Okay. Any other comments? Yeah.
I'm not signed in. You want me to sign in first, or?
Yes, please. I get yelled at if you don't sign in.
You get yelled
Very
at.
kindly.
It's yelled at anyway.
Very kindly.
My name is Dan. I work with Dick Sanitation. I've been a driver out here in Shakopee for about 10 years. Ron over here has been with Shakopee since the contract started, and one of our other trash drivers was with Shakopee only a few months after that. This provides a lot of good stability, I think, for the citizens of Shakopee, but the thing is, I think it shows us that us drivers, Ron and I, care very deeply about levels and qualities of service that we provide to the citizens here. I've enjoyed working here. I've built relationships with some of the families, watched their kids grow up, and you know, I've gotten to know some of these people on a first name basis. I hope the city decides to stay with us.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Ron Blum. I've been with Dick Sanitation and the city of Shakopee ever since day one when we first got the contract. During this time, we came out here just when the city was growing like there wasn't no tomorrow. I'd be lying if I wouldn't say it wasn't hectic at times going into these neighborhoods where there's 15 construction vehicles and you name it out there. But we got the job done very efficiently, professionally, no accidents. Like Dan said too, I have connected with so many people in Shakopee over the years, and I have never heard one person say that our prices were high and they didn't like us. Dick's is an awful great company to work for. during the years I've been at Dick's, I could have switched routes and went into other routes, but I've declined. I wanted to stay out here in Shakopee because I really love the city. I just hope city council keeps us out here, and I love working out here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Know my name? I was just
Not
going to-
everyone knows your name.
Well, my name is Sean Nelson, and I'm
Wait till you get to the microphone. It's not your first time.
I was just going to ask if, as part of this process, how either Elite, Allied, or Dick's, how they take care of their employees has factored into this decision. It's debatable whether it's the government's responsibility to take this into effect, or account, rather, but it would seem to me that if we're going to be employing people in Shakopee, we would want them to have the largest paycheck or best hours that they could get. So I just want to know if that was a factor in your decisions, Mr. McNeil?
The city's responsibility on this is for the residents, and they have to have good service at a fair price. If that is not being provided by the employee, or excuse me, by the company, then that's something we can follow up on. How they handle it internally is something that we don't get involved with.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Now, Mr. Whiting.
Okay,
Councilor Whiting,
thought
you-
forgot
you're
where I
you're back
was.
on. There we go. Sorry.
I'll start. Well, I think the first thing to talk about is, you know, a year ago, we decided that we were gonna take a look at this, and it wasn't because we didn't like Dick's. Dick's did a great job, but it was time to take a look at the numbers. And when we did take a look at the numbers, there's a difference between about $400,000 difference in the overall service, and I think that's important to note. And Mr. Nelson did bring up a good point about those jobs too. I think it's important that you bring in a hauler that's providing good jobs, and I've heard nothing but good complaints from Dick's. However, I think it's important because of that value. Unfortunately, we're not, as far as I know, we're not going to go back and open this back up to renegotiate again after we've been through this. But it's too bad they didn't bring some of those proposals at the beginning of the conversation. But if we're going to open this up, I think we need to look at the value to our citizens, and to me, that's the lowest bid. The lowest bid would be Allied, the one that came up for, to the committee's recommendation.
It's the lowest dollar amount.
Well, it's
Right. Councilor Lehman.
Well, to me, it's basically two things. It's the cost and it's the service. And I'm told that by our staff, our review committee, and our consultant, that in the negotiation process, there's performance baselines that they have to meet, or there's a penalty. So I'm assuming that we're striving for a standard set of level of service with anybody that we have. And if they don't meet that standard level, there's penalties, whether it's Dick's or Joe's or Sam's or Henry's. So I kind of, if that's true, then I assume that all the service levels are gonna be at least to a level consistent. Some companies may go above and beyond, some companies may not, but you're gonna be guaranteed that level. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. Then the next thing is the price. Clearly Allied was the lowest, and was it Elite was the second. So that's how I'm looking at it. And I'm not really looking at the garbage can issue, Jack, because that wasn't part of the referral proposal, and they came in with that at the 11th hour, and there was some discussion on whether it was accurate or not, which it wasn't, because it wasn't part of what was in the RFP, which actually made it 9 years out, I believe, because it would require a 2-year and a 2-year renewal on top of the 5 years before we'd actually take ownership of them. And that bridge is already, water's already went under that bridge two meetings ago where this body decided they were gonna buy these carts. I voted against that. But nonetheless, the body did take an action, and I respect the authority of this body. So that's where my thought process is at this point.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or discussion? Councilor Clay?
I'm looking at the difference as a percentage. It's, our current hauler Dix is about 7% higher than the other bidders. And I'm wondering, is 7% a worthwhile sacrifice to make in paying extra in order to be assured that we maintain the same high level of service that we've enjoyed for the last 11 years? I'm not sure I have an answer for that yet, but that's what's on my mind at the moment.
You're gonna need to figure out an answer for that one pretty quickly here.
Yeah, it sounds that way.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Judge Lehman?
Can I ask our consultant a question?
Absolutely.
The level of service and performance indicators that we're anticipating and the penalties for not reaching that mark, how does that compare to the service level we're currently receiving?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Councilmember Lehman, the liquidated damages, as we call them legally in the RFP and in the draft service agreement, are actually more extensive than the current contract. I think there are liquidated damages in the current contract, but these are brought up to date, refreshed, and so it's actually technically and legally it's the city's cost if there's missed stops or missed calls or some level of service below a standard. It's not actually a penalty, it's the city's cost to rectify. And those are more extensive and at a higher rate than the current contract. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure I understood what you just said.
Well, there's actual dollar amounts established for different standards of service.
But you said it was the city's cost?
If the city has to get involved to get the contractor to rectify missed stops, there's a cost.
Okay, and then how
So-
does the city get reimbursed for that cost?
Through the liquidated damages approach.
Okay.
We can call them penalties, and maybe we should for sake of discussion. So the penalty is higher this time than it was in the existing contract, and there are more standards listed.
Okay.
So there are more service standards, and at a higher, there's more incentive now with the new contract proposed than there is with the existing contract to reach those standards.
Okay. Is it a fair statement to say that currently with the DICs that we have now, if they didn't meet a standard, there would be a penalty or a liquidated damage
Yes,
to DICs? Correct?
correct.
Okay. So that's their incentive to have good service.
It's one incentive. I think the customer relations and public relations and statements that you've heard about good service is probably more important than a one-time penalty of a few $100s.
Okay. And so the same applies for any service provider that we choose?
Yes, I think your statement was accurate that there is a minimum that's expected no matter who the contractor is, and those penalties or liquidated damages will be the same language for any contractor.
Okay. All right.
Councilor Whiting?
Mr. Crivet, if you could, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes,
Crivet?
actually, you
Thank
got it right. Thank you.
You've negotiated these contracts with other cities in the past, haven't you?
Yes.
How many times has Allied been the recommendation?
Well, in the recent past, several they've done fairly well. I don't know what the nature of your question is.
I was just
but
wondering if this is
it's
something
not
that...
always, it's not always been, but it has been, and on several that we've been involved with, and several that Allied has not been the recommended.
Okay, thanks.
And then as a follow-up of that, how successful have they been with taking over contracts such as this?
The two cases that I would refer to are Edina for recycling and Maplewood for trash only. Now, this here in Shakopee is a bundled trash and recycling and yard waste. So, slight difference, but the general nature of your question is it's been satisfactory.
Okay. That's all I was asking. Thank you. Any other questions?
Oh, questions? No.
Question, I just haven't commented yet. So.
Councilor Sherman.
Just to comment on the process, I mean, I feel like we've put a lot of trust in the committee, and they've done an extensive amount of research, and we haven't seen the 100-page binders, so we're getting this, view of everything that's been consolidated and brought to us. So I have to trust in the process, and I guess the other piece is thinking of our residents' pocketbooks, where the switching is the one thing that's difficult for me to consider, because it seems like that's still that unknown cost out there. However, I've been assured that that's been built into these numbers in some cases. And I guess just top of mind, I have to think of our residents' pocketbooks. You know, you look at the state and what's happening in St. Paul this spring, and it's very frustrating to think about how many additional costs are coming the way of our residents, and I would not want to be a contributor to that.
Anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion. Councilor Whiting?
I'll move to give direction to staff to negotiate a contract with Allied Waste Services as the preferred vendor for residential refuse and recycling and yard waste services, and also designate a second and third backup vendor for negotiating purposes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilor Lehman. Discussion, Councilor Lehman.
Is that supposed to be a resolution? 7306?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think we should include in that,
Offer
and
friendly
also,
amendment, resolution 7306.
yes.
I'll accept that. That should be at the action sought.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you. Good catch, Councilor Lehman. So we accepted the amendment?
Yes.
We're good, right? Okay. Any further discussion? Councilor Clay?
I still think 7% is an okay number to go with, and I would prefer staying with a known entity, known quantity, known quality of service.
Other thoughts? Councilor Sherman?
That is definitely, it makes this decision very difficult, for sure. I would agree.
I say that, having been on the council 20 years ago, when I used to get calls every, 2 or 3 times a month from people complaining about garbage service. And just, I suspect it was the same lady every month, but sometimes, but and in the 7+ years that I've been on the council this time, I have not gotten a single call or email from anybody with a complaint about the service from Dick's.
Are you serious about that?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Lehman?
I'm just relying on the fact that in these contracts that there's a certain level of service that they have to meet. And they all have to meet the same level, and if they don't, there's penalties, and the penalties, I'm told by our consultant, are stiffer in a new contract than it is with the existing one, so there's more of an incentive to have a higher level of service. So as long as we hold whoever our provider is to that level, I'm expecting the same or better service. You can't replace some of the relationships and some of the service that we've received from Dick's. I personally haven't had any problem with Dick's. Granted, you missed my garbages a few times, but I don't complain about it. But it's not.
As a company, forget to put it out.
Well, right.
Right.
they're, they've got good service, there's no question about that, but I also have waste management at my business, and I haven't had any complaints about that one either, so.
Councilor Whiting?
I guess in the end, you take the trash, you put it in the bin, and you expect it to go away. If all works and there's not a mess in the alley and everything, and, the cans are put back where they're supposed to go, things go good. And there's that personal relationship too, if you have that with your hauler, that sometimes works with homeowners to do those little extra things, and we hope we can get that from Allied too. But in the end, it comes down to dollars and cents for the community, and I think that's important to factor in.
Anyone else? All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1 with Councilor Clay in dissent. All right, thank you, especially folks from Dick's. It has been a very good service, and we are looking forward to another year of service. And thank you very much, you guys who are out doing all the work and making sure to keep everything clean and working for the city. So thank you very much for the work that you've done. And then we'll move on from there. Right, thank you.
Okay, 5-minute recess.
We've got very short, yeah. All right, 9F2.
Mayor and Council, this is a follow-up from the discussion which you had as part of the 501 Economic Development discussion on May 14th. At the meeting, you spent about 2 hours and 45 minutes along with the EDAC, SPUC commissioners, and Planning Commission looking at a variety of things relating to development in Shakopee. Unfortunately, we ran out of time before we got to the policy, the meaty questions. Mayor Tabke asked after the meeting if this is something that could be put on the agenda for the regular meeting of June 4th. Unfortunately, you've got at least one other major issue that night. That would be the rental housing licensing discussion. And we're guessing it would be probably 8:30 before you'd be able to get to this discussion. The 501 group thinks that we need probably about 2.5 hours to really get through the rest of this. So based on that, that's sort of a late start and would be a late ending. What we would recommend is that you go to a separate workshop night. We'd suggest Tuesday, June 25th. We would have Bruce Moss come back. He was the last individual you may recall at that May 14th meeting to help facilitate us through this and lead the discussion. Is this something that you'd want to do?
Councilor Whiting?
Well, I, for one, was in attendance, and I found it very exciting and saw the energy in the room, and I think we're going to need to spend some time discussing this, so I already got it in my calendar.
That works for me as well.
25th, 6:30.
6:30 is the recommended time.
We're adding it to, or is that a new?
It's a new one.
It's a new one.
What date?
25th.
Tuesday,
June. Councilor Sherman?
When are budget meetings starting?
They will be starting the last week of July.
Okay.
You're getting excited already.
I know.
Yeah, the
Hey.
printing
Add that to
presses
my
just
calendar.
came in from China.
All right. Do we need a motion on that one?
If I could just get a
Yep.
motion to establish that date for 6:30, June 25th for the 501 continuation.
Councilor Whiting?
I'd like to move that we have a continued discussion on Tuesday, June 25th at 6:30 for the Scale 501 discussion with the EDAC and Planning Commission and SPUC.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Sherman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously. Item 10, council member reports. We'll start on this side. Councilor Sherman?
I have no report tonight.
Councilor Lehman?
I met with Michael Leak and our couple of folks from the Met Council at their request. Let's see here. We had a entertaining discussion about transit and various aspects of transit, I guess I'll say.
Entertaining, huh?
It was. Told you earlier, the VFW and a group of businesses on First Avenue put together a flag and pole thing for First Avenue, should set us up for the next couple of years at any rate. Thanks to Public Works for putting them up and taking them down and stuff. It's a good joint partnership with the city and private business and VFW. Derby Days meets Thursday, be going to that, and I think that's it.
Councilor Clay.
The Public Utilities Commission, we're flushing the water lines, flushing hydrants and stuff. They've suspended that until the local flood warnings are suspended. They don't want to be adding any more water to that kind of thing. The governor, the fine governor from the great state of Minnesota, Mr. Dayton, recognized Shakopee and 2 other water suppliers for their work in protecting the source water in their areas. Shakopee is one of 3 city systems out of 730 throughout the state to receive this designation. He'll be stopping out here sometime in the future to make a formal presentation for that. This kind of goes back to, I think I was talking about it with you a year or so ago, the wellhead protection plan, making, protecting the water supply. And we talked about it again as we were looking at our discussion about trying to encourage, closing up septic systems or wells that aren't being used, to, get as few perforations through the rock layers into the water system as possible. There was a couple of short power outages. There were 3 lightning strikes in this last big storm a week or so ago. They did approve the same new lighting policy that we agreed to at our last meeting, our new lighting district policy. And I think that's it.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Whiting?
Thursday, May 9th, I attended the Downtown Flower Basket fundraiser where the mayor gave his State of the City address, and I want to thank all those that donated items and who came out to support the cause, and I want to especially thank Brian Turtle for hosting the event. Friday, May 10th, I attended the Scale General Membership Meeting. Tuesday, May 14th, I was here for the Scale 501. As I mentioned, left the meeting with the idea that we're moving forward in a positive direction. Wednesday, May 15th, I attended the Chamber Visitors Bureau Board meeting. And Thursday, May 16th, I met with staff to discuss the process for hiring full-time firefighters. Ms. Wilson has a solid plan to proceed with the process, and that will guarantee a fair hiring process. I also want to mention May 30th again, the Met Council having their listening session out at the Scale Regional Training Center at 6:30.
Thank you, sir. As Councilor Whiting said, on the 9th, I also want to thank everybody for working together to raise funds for the flower baskets for downtown, including these guys out here. So thank you for your work there.
Good job, guys.
And the 13th, Regional Council Mayor's meeting downtown was discussing Scale and the future of Scale and what is going on, not Scale, sorry, with Med Council is what I meant to say. 14th in the morning, Samantha DiMaggio and I attended Greater MSP investor meeting. So as a city, we're an investor in Greater MSP, and they talked about the successes that we've had and where we need to work. They also did a lot of, it was actually fairly interesting. They had questions about what you think our strengths as a region are and things like that, and they'd put them up on the screen, and everybody had a little, looked like a little calculator that you pushed and answered, and it was very interesting to see the differences of opinion as to from the public services sector and from government sector, from private companies, and it was very enlightening. I think they got different answers than they expected from a lot of the folks, so it was interesting to watch. Also went to Saks. They had their Liberty Day celebration on the 14th, and a bunch of kids gave inspiring speeches and essays on the future of the country, and it's a lot of fun to go there. Also went to Legos on the 14th, and then that's it. That's all I got. And item number 11, other business. Anything else? Councilor Lehman.
Motion to adjourn to June 4th. Wait. Oh.
Councilor Clay.
One thing, we got, at least I did, I assume everybody else did too, in our council packet, is little unsigned, unnamed, anonymous note offering comments about the fire department. It's just not the first time we've received anonymous stuff. I personally, I don't read emails that aren't signed. I don't read letters that aren't signed. I don't talk to people on the phone unless they give me their name and address and the phone number to call them back. So, you know, and I really have no interest in what somebody has to say who has neither the courage nor the courtesy to put their name to it. So in the future, if it'll save you a few pages of copying, don't forward any of that, anything that's unsigned or anonymous to me. I don't read it anyway. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that. If you want to keep getting anonymous communications sent to you anyway, that's fine, but don't send them to me.
I concur.
I concur.
I'll take them either way. I don't care. Gives me something to think about. I don't care who it came from. Just perspective.
Very good. All right. Any other business? Item number 11?
Motion to adjourn to June 4th.
We're not to item number 12 yet. Item number 12. I'll accept a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, June 4th, 2013. Councilor Lehman.
Somebody need a cigarette?
I thought you quit, Jim.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn to June 4th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Clay. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously. We are adjourned at 8:43.